Teresa, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me. Congratulations on mixtape.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed this a lot more than I anticipated just because of really the nostalgia value of it because it kind of deals with the fact that what coulda, shoulda, what is, and then what can be. And so like no matter who we are, where we are in life, whether we're in a good position or not, I feel like it's sometimes even a fun question to look into. Tell me about a little bit of your experience with playing Allison.
Yeah, I agree. I read the script and I was so nostalgic. I It immediately threw me back to my 19-year-old self and falling in love for the first time and just how intoxicating that feels. And the love is so potent and obsessive. It was really so fun to read. And also the music cues were amazing. I grew up making mixtapes for people, receiving mixtapes, burning CDs for folks. Like it was a big part of my youth. So I fell in love with this script. And I think that we've all had those feelings of like, oh my gosh, imagine if I bumped into my first love now, all these years later. What would that be like? What would they look like? What would their life be like? And this show actually explores the reality of that happening. And that was pretty cool.
It's interesting because we live now in an age where that's a really easy thing to do thanks to social media and kind of like, we see um a Daniel go on Facebook and just kind of be like, well, all right, let's give this a shot, and then give you an ad, and it could open a whole can of worms as far as what is this person doing, the curiosities that you're talking about, and so
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about your chemistry with Jim Sturgis, who plays Daniel.
Jim is such a beautiful performer. He's just gorgeous. It was funny, we met so many years ago. I tested for the movie 21, which he was in, and I didn't end up getting the role. Kate Bosworth did, who also tested for it. But I met Jim back then and we hit it off. We were just laughing and goofing around and we had such a good time. And then I didn't see him for so many years. And I watched his career take off and I felt really proud of him. And I thought that guy just deserves it all because he's such a kind, warm person. And then we met again for the first time on this. And he's married with kids, and I'm married with all these kids. And we were talking about our careers, and I was like, oh my God, we get to catch up in the 20 years we haven't seen each other. We get to catch up on each other's lives. And it wasn't dissimilar to Alison and Dan in some ways. And it was just awesome. He's really big into his music. He's actually in a band himself, King Curious. So he made me playlists for the TV show. He made me Alison playlists for mixtape. And I made him hip hop playlists because he's also into hip hop. And I grew up listening to like 90s rap. KRS-One, Mob Deep, Big L, Master Ace, all these artists, Gangsta. So I was making him tapes like that, and he was sending me some really cool European rap. And anyway, it was so fun. We had the best time together.
Yeah, so you guys really got to really live that whole mixtape vibe of it all. That's
Yeah.
really fun. What kind of advantages did you have of the fact that in the script you were also getting to see the younger version of yourself? In this case, it's played by Florence Hunt. So that did that help your character?
I think for me, it was very informative to read her story. Florence wasn't cast until I basically had wrapped the show. So I didn't get to see any of her filming or any of the work she was doing. But I knew that they had cast someone. They kept saying, oh, she's such a similar essence to you. And I had to read through all of her stuff because the trauma that her character or that our character goes through when she's younger really is the fabric of who I am as the adult version of Alison. So it was the painful, vulnerable parts of her, the disjointed parts of older Alison that I really had to wrap my head around. And Florence had it rough because she had to do a lot of this really intense violent, abusive things that her character goes through. She had to film all of that. And then I'm filming the rebirth, the new version of herself, the woman who's run away from her past and completely reinvented herself, including dropping a Sheffield accent, turning into an Australian, and rewriting her whole narrative. But of course, there are cracks in her life. And when we find her, she's very much a shell of herself. And I think the suppression of the trauma come that manifests itself in so many different relationships in her life. And it's not great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought that you would have to do it that way, but I mean, heck, that's Hollywood for you. You know, you gotta you gotta roll with the punches. But the fact that you were just reading off the script, I thought you guys did a great job really at the showcasing both the young and the old to really make the story very, very cohesive. One thing I did want to talk about is the mixtapes because I think that find that music a lot of times is kind of like the key to memories. Like because a lot of times we'll lock things away for better or for worse, or just because time passes. But then there's that one song that'll unlock a certain moment, a certain time. It can even unlock flavors in some cases just because they're so powerful. Is there a song or a couple of songs maybe that come to mind that for you you can think of that instantly bring up a certain memory? You don't necessarily have to convey the memory, but like songs that are that powerful for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think my playlist with my first love is really a really big part of who I am. I think that first love romantic experience um, shapes who you are. And there was a song I played the other day in the car that I had forgotten about, and it was on our playlist. It was like me and my first love's playlist. And it was this song by Heather Nova called Maybe an Angel, like back from the 90s. And I was listening to it and I suddenly was transported back to like being with my boyfriend when I was 19 and the love and how like connected we were. And then another song like that for me is Sneaker Pimps, Six Underground, which is a really, really big part of my youth and reminds me so much of being 14, 15, 16 and starting to rebel a bit. And it was such a cool song, I remember at the time. Like I would crank it driving up to school with my subwoofer in the back of my bright yellow car. I would play it and like Chronic 2001, the album, I would like crank it up to my driving up to my Catholic private school. I'd like wind down the window. It's like Dr. Dre and Eminem. And the teacher's like, Teresa, please turn that down. It's inappropriate.
Like what? I can't hear you. Oh, it's funny. It's interesting because in the series we watch how Daniel makes you a playlist. It's not a mixtape, but it's a playlist. Do you what do you think we lose in this modern day and age of technology of not recording on a cassette? Or in my case, I was just after the cassette era, so I was burning CDs for people. What do you think we lose in just having to drag over songs versus actually create a physical copy of a mixtape?
Well, I just liked being able to push the cassette in or push the CD in and it just played the songs and you weren't kind of shuffling and you weren't like clicking on different you just listen from start to finish, and then the ordering of it was always really important. And I guess playlists, like people can send over a playlist and it's in the same order. But also a CD, unless they wrote out all the songs on there, oftentimes it would be surprising, like what the next song would be the first time you listen to it, which was really exciting. And then I remember when I made mixtapes for people, for me, the order was really, really important. Like where I would start, the tone of the songs, where it would start, and then how it would end. Um, and it's so nice to be surprised that when you have a playlist, you see all the songs that they've put on the playlist, and you're like, oh, okay, okay. There's like the element of surprise is gone.
Yeah, it's such a it was such an art. It was great. Also, you had a lot of times the physical copies of all the other tapes of the CDs that you bought, and you were just kind of shuffling them in there and playing one song, and then all right, cool, let's get to the other one. Let's get to the next one. But yeah, it's I think it was a big part of growing up, and I think mixtape, series, this four-part series really shows the power of music and the power of just remembering who we are, who we were, and who we are, and then could that reflection can maybe change the way maybe we even make decisions. I That's the reasons why I really like the series.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, me too. I watched it feeling just so good about what we made, and it really brought back so many memories for me, and it was such a great thing to explore. So I'm glad the audiences are feeling connected to it.
Very excited because you guys are premiering at South by Southwest, which I think kicks off tomorrow. Congratulations ahead of time and good luck because I'm sure that you're going to have a lot of smiling faces and a lot of conversations going ahead that more about music and about mixtapes. So, Teresa, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm glad I got
Oh,
to talk to you for a few minutes about this great series.
thanks for having me, Manny.